Looks like we have a lot of cold people today.
Oh, yeah. I'm cold. Well, hi, Linda.
Hello, Aubrey. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm freezing. It's been -1, -2 here. I know you got hammered with snow. We didn't get very much snow, but
Yesterday morning, I woke up and I checked the weather app on my phone for Woodstock, Illinois, and it was 30 below zero.
oh
And
my God.
then midday, it was zero. So we gained 30 degrees, but it was still really cold.
That's not like what is that the way it feels with the wind, or is that
No,
the temperature?
that was the actual temperature.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Well, ours
Yeah.
wasn't that bad, but it's still been really cold here. So,
Yeah.
and it looks like it's been cold everywhere. I posted
Mhm.
in our VIP Facebook group, and I had over 180 comments. We had a couple people had beautiful weather where they were, but a majority of everyone across the United States is frozen. So what better time to be in your sewing room? I
Yeah,
mean, you don't want to go anywhere, right? So
right. Make something warm.
that's right. So jump in here with us and hang out, and we'll spend some time sewing together. So we are already in. Let me do this so we can see everybody. We're already in. This is session 3 of the Barn Quilt Sew Along. So some of these are going to be, you've heard these before, right? If you've been with us before, but we are streaming in Facebook. We're streaming on YouTube, so you can watch either place. And if you're on Facebook, in order for us to see your comments and your name, if you've never done this before, you'll want to go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give us permission to view that. If you're on YouTube, it just automatically does it. But I will say, in order to interact and be in our community, the very best place to be for that is our VIP Facebook group. Everyone can post their pictures in there. It's just a lot of fun. So check that out. The second housekeeping item is just a reminder that we do have wonderful customer service. We have a real person named Nina who answers the phone, or will call you back if she's on with another customer. And her email and phone number is there as well. So if you have any questions specific to you, your account, or something like that, that's the way to go. And today, what are we doing today, Linda?
Today we are going to do the edge to edge, which is optional for the very back of your barn quilt. So maybe you could show me large for 1 minute, Aubrey.
Sure.
And I'll kind of give you a reminder. This is the front of the Rolling Star barn quilt. And if you want to, you can do our optional edge to edge files for the back. So that's what we're going to work on today. You don't have to do it, it's optional. Typically we get this far with the top, and then we put a piece of fabric on the back and stitch in a ditch. But I thought it would be so much fun to make it a little bit interesting and put some quilting on the back. So that's what we're going to do. So I think,
of that,
oh yeah, okay, yes, you go ahead and do that.
Well, I just wanted to say it's here. We've added this. So if you got the download and you want to re-download, you'll have this within your files, or you can just simply go to our Facebook group, and we have added this within that group as a file. And in the guides section of that group, just at the top, you can click guides, and everything barn quilt related is in the barn quilt collection guide. And this is now included in there too, which is different sizing information that Linda's going to cover with us today.
Yes, I neglected to put that in there. So Eileen Lloyd, one of our great customers and one of my local customers, asked about the sizing because she couldn't get it to show up in her machine. So, and I went and looked at all of our, all our stuff that we have with the barn quilt, and there was no sizing information in there. So now it's there. So you can look at it that way.
And we know it's super little on the screen right now, but just know you can re-download if you ordered the downloadable version, or you can just go to our VIP Facebook group. And Nina, maybe you can post the VIP Facebook group in case someone's watching on YouTube or on our Facebook page. So you guys can link right in there. And I've uploaded those as of this morning.
Perfect. Okay, so I think I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And we're going to talk about our edge to edge backing for the small rolling star. So this is the instructions that Aubrey was talking about in the folder on your USB or your download. And this is actually the edge to edge pre-quilted back small rolling star. You'll have a different one for each size of the rolling star, as well as the meadow star. So today I'm working on the small rolling star. If you're going to be working on the medium meadow star, you're going to want to go into that folder and pull that up because it's got specific information on how to mark your quilt back. So first of all, we start with your small quilt back fabric, and it's 36 inches long by width of fabric. And we need you to mark the center both horizontally and vertically. Then on page 2 of those same instructions, by the way, this is all done on the right side of the fabric. All of the sparking is done on the right side of your fabric. From the center vertical line, we want to mark over 2 1/4 inches on either side. Hopefully you can see my mouse. And then from there, we're going to go over 4 1/2. So we've got 1, 2, 3 lines to the left of the center and 3 lines to the right. And they all have a spacing of 4 1/2 inches apart. Next, we do the horizontal lines, and we start from the center again. We basically want this to be centered on your fabric, and we go 3 1/2 inches up from the center in the middle and 3 1/2 inches down, and then we space them 7 inches. Now, if you are working on a medium file or a large file, your numbers will be different. That's why you need to go ahead and pull up the instructions for the specific size you are doing. So once we get all of that marked, then we can mark out on our fabric where our designs go. There's actually 4 designs in the edge to edge on the back. There's an edge 1, edge 2, edge 3, and edge 4. So we're going to go ahead and mark that out on our fabric, which design goes where. And then when we go to hoop it and stitch it, it'll be real easy to do it. So I'm going to, well, first of all, this white piece here, this is your actual fabric. And this kind of light green around the outside edge, that represents either your batting or your pre-washed flannel. So that's what you will find on your instructions. So now, let's see, let me add, you can add my camera, Aubrey. This one.
All right.
Yep.
Now, this is what I like to see, the real life demonstration.
Yeah, so this is my fabric all marked out. It's probably going to be a little hard to see, but there's a 1 there, a 2, 1, 2. So that's going to go all the way across, and then 3, 4, 3, 4. So this is the bottom lower left corner of my quilt. I'm actually going to show you, I'm actually showing you a really low-tech way to do this. There are lots and lots of machines out there that have all the fancy cameras and apps, but if you don't have a machine like that, you need to know what to do. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do the very low-tech version. So hopefully you can see I have a number 1 right here. And this is my marks that I did, that I showed you on our instructions. And I will take my hoop. A lot of hoops will have, I'm sure they all do, they have center marks at the top and the bottom, and they're also going to have center marks on the sides. And those marks we made are going to line up with with these lines that we drew. So here's my low-tech version. This is actually painter's tape. And this works so well. Because if I were to try to just put this is my inner ring in my hoop, if I were to just try to put my outer ring under there and try to get it hooped and get it straight, it's going to move around and it's not going to be straight. So we'll just use a little bit of painter's tape. I cut off a piece. It's a few inches long. And because my hoop has a little ridge right here, I'm going to make a small tear in that. I'm going to line that up. And tape it down. I'm going to line it up down here. Now this is a small hoop for this one single design. If you're using a bigger hoop, you might want to use more tape than I'm doing just to hold it really well. And this tape is definitely reusable. So as I do my next one, I can just peel it off and reuse it. So there we go. We've got everything all lined up.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, what?
Miss Joan on YouTube has a good question. She said, are you using just fabric, no batting? What do you got in there?
Okay, I jumped ahead. You're right, Miss Joan. This is my fabric. This is my back of my quilt. And this is actually flannel. So you can use either a nice, good quality flannel. I did pre-wash the flannel so it would shrink because flannel is known for shrinking. So I did pre-wash it. And I've got my back with my flannel or my batting underneath my back. So those are my layers. And then somebody else does a painter's tape, leave it sticky. No, that's why I like the painter's tape. It's very low tack.
Just don't use duct tape.
Duct tape would not be good, yes. So then this is my outer or my outside ring of my hoop. I'm going to slide this underneath, and you can see when I pick this up, my hoop doesn't move. And I'll wiggle it around till I get it where I want it. And push it down in there. Make sure it's all nice and smooth. And then my hoop has a little catch, a little lever under here I have to close. So I close that up. And then you can just simply peel the tape away and put it aside and use it for your next one.
Teresa said she wishes she would have known this 20 years ago. It would have avoided so much frustration.
Know about the tape?
I think so. And then Jude said, so do you need to use some form of batting in addition to the battleizer? And what you're saying
Definitely. Yeah, you want to use something. And this flannel is just a really nice thick flannel. And it will look nice once it's quilted. If you try to do it just on the fabric, you're not going to have anything to sort of stabilize it, and it might not look as pretty. Plus, I like a little bit of lightweight layer on the back of my quilt just to kind of hide the seams on the back of the quilt once it's joined together.
And I
so
think
yeah, I'm glad you like.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think also just to speak to Jude's point, the battleizer we used in the front, the
yes.
blocks, we are not using battleizer in this part, which is the backing.
We are not using it because it would just be way too thick. So this is going to be nice and thin. If you're using batting, I really recommend you use the Quilter's Dream Request Loft. It's a poly batting and it's very, very lightweight. And I've done that on all of my samples except for this one, the two I'm doing for the live. So I used the Quilter's Dream Select and it worked. Request Loft, which is very thin, and it worked beautiful. And the flannel I'm using for these two quilts I'm doing for the live, and I think it's going to be even better because it's going to be even thinner. But again, make sure you pre-wash it because it does tend to shrink more than regular fabric, and you don't want that when you wash your quilt at some point. You don't want the back to be smaller than the front. So, okay, I see everybody likes the low-tech version. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm going to switch real quick to the sewing machine, Aubrey.
Okay. And while she switches her camera, just so people don't get dizzy, I'm going to take over the screen for a minute. So we're on session 3 right now. And next week, we're actually going to come back and Linda is going to wrap up the whole sew along talking and showing you about the facing. So instead of a binding on this quilt, she did a facing. And she's going to get into all that plus the label next Wednesday. It's already going to be January 24th, you guys. January 24th, same time, same place. So that's when we will wrap things up. And I will put your demo cam on.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so in my sewing machine, I've got just regular embroidery pre-wound bobbin thread. And in my needle, I put whatever thread that I want to quilt with. And I have this kind of a teal color thread that I'm going to quilt with.
You might want to turn your light off so we can see.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I forgot about that. Let me do that. I remembered last time I did it. I didn't remember this time.
So many people are excited about the way you taped that. And Marge says that she really wished she would have known that when she did some towel embroidered towels for Christmas.
Oh, that's always been a struggle for me is getting that hoop in there. And a lot of machines, again, will have a great quilting hoop. And so if you've got that, that's excellent too. And then you don't really need to do this. But if you just have a regular hoop and it moves around on you, stick some painter's tape on there. It's inexpensive. You can get it anywhere, and it doesn't leave any sticky mess on your fabric or your hoop. Okay, so I have, hopefully you can see there's a number 1 right there, because I went ahead and labeled all of my little crosshair sections. So I know I have to pick my edge 1 design. So I'm going to do that on my machine. I'll put my hoop on. And then I need to make sure that my design landed in the center. If it doesn't, I'm sure you guys know how to jog it over. So I'm just going to jog it over just a tiny bit. I got kind of lucky that time. So my needle went down right in the center, which is perfect. So now I'm just going to go ahead. This is a 2-minute design. I'll stitch it.
And everyone always wants to know what kind of machine you're using. If you want to give it a plug, now's your chance.
Okay, I'm using the Janome Continental M17 because I'm a Janome dealer, and why not, right?
Right.
But any good quality embroidery machine will work just fine. We've got all the formats on our designs. And what I'm showing you as far as the method I'm using can be done on any machine. This machine happens to have a lot of Janomes, has an app for placement. That'll work fine too. Some of the machines have cameras. There's lots of different ways you can place designs. But I like to show you the low-tech version because frankly, it's very fast and very effective. So you can see how quick these are to stitch. So I have a question for everybody watching. Have you ever stitched a design and then you wanted to stitch another design and you forgot to change it on your machine and you stitched the same design twice without meaning to? Have you ever done that? Well, in case you haven't, I sure have. Carla wants to know if my hoop is an 8x8. This hoop is not an 8x8. So what I'm saying is now I need to go ahead and stitch design number 2 here. I need to take my hoop off and re-hoop and stitch design number 2 next to it. So what I don't want to do, I'm going to put my screen on, the camera on my screen, and hopefully you can see it. It's not too bright. I don't want to leave my design up on the screen because inevitably I'll sit down and think that's the right design. So what I want to do is go ahead and open my next file. I'll go to the file where all of my designs are, and I leave all of my design choices up here. That way when I sit down again and go to sew, I won't go, oh, I'll make sure that I pick the right design. I can't tell you, I've done it a few times. I've done a few of these quilt backs, and I'm very upset when I have 2 1s next to each other and I need a 1 and a 2.
Well, they probably look pretty similar. I mean, we know they're different. They look pretty similar.
Yeah, because they're like mirrored or something like that. I'm going to move my camera again.
Also probably depends on what time of day or night you're sewing, right?
Oh yeah, if you're paying attention, if you're listening to music, whatever.
Yeah.
Let me get it situated.
I'm going to pop this back up while you get situated. There you go, because I think you were upside down before.
Yeah.
So while she's doing that, I just want to make sure you guys don't get dizzy. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Okay, so here's my design number 1 stitched out on that crosshair that we drew onto our quilt back fabric. Take off the hoop. set it aside. By the way, I did not use, you can use it, but I did not use any kind of spray based or anything to stick my layers together because I find that the fabric grabs onto either the flannel or the batting. So I just like to unhoop it, smooth it all out, and move on. So now we're ready to hoop up for number 2. So we repeat, rinse and repeat. Line up my little cross sections of my hoop. Now my tape is all ready to go. I just stuck it over to the side here.
And Linda, you might have said this, and if you did, I missed it, but someone's asking, which is a good question, what did you use to put those marks on your quilt?
I use a Fix-On pen. You got to be a little careful with these. For example, if I mark this on red, it'll leave a white line when you iron it off. A dark fabric, it'll leave a white line. This is white fabric. This irons off just fine without any trouble. If you have a dark fabric, you could use like maybe a blue air or one of those air erasable markers or a blue marker or a white chalk, something that'll come off. But I do know that if I try to put this on a red or a navy or something dark and I hit it with the iron, because this comes off with an iron, it'll leave a white mark. So you got to mark it with something that you can see.
Okay.
So I've got all my centers lined up, and I'll take my outer ring, slide it right under there, and give it a hoop. And then I can take off my tape. And I won't go back to the machine because you know what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to call up my design number 2, stitch this out, and keep going.
Okay. Carla
So
has
yeah, question?
Carla's asking, and that's kind of a good question, depending on where these go. She said, could you do all the ones and then all the twos? Just so she could keep it straight, I think.
Well, I suppose you could. I don't see why you couldn't do all the ones and then all the twos. But I kind of like to go across and then start to go down. And that way I can see it all fill in nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we do not mark the lines, does the design have a start and line position on the design to line it up? You need to mark the lines because that's your center of your design.
All right.
And Jeannie asked if the Fix-On pen markings come back when it's cold. I know it will on a dark color. I've never noticed it on a light color, but you need to test your fabric.
All right. All right. Anything else, Linda?
Couple things. I think I'll show them. This is a little hard to see, but this is my.
Oop, shoot. Linda, you're going to kill me. I just somehow deleted you. Let me add you back.
There we go.
I meant to do this. There you go.
So this is the quilt back that I've been working on, and this will be the back of my metal star that I've been working on for the live. And you can see once the marks are all ironed off or removed, however you need to take them off, you can't really see where they begin and where they end.
Pretty cool.
So I have another thing to share about hooping. If you happen to have a machine with a really big hoop, this can go a little faster for you, especially if you're using the small design. I know some people out there will have a machine with a really big hoop. So this is my ridiculously big hoop.
I was gonna
And
say.
I am able, you don't have to make templates. If you have the ability to make templates with your software for your machine, you can go ahead and print up your full-size templates. And I've labeled this edge 2. So I'm just going to kind of put them on here as a rough, just roughly. I'm not attaching them. I'm not concerned about them being perfect because I have my marks on my fabric. So this is 3, this is 4. And once I get them on there, then I can kind of see where my bigger hoop needs to go. And I can tell by, it's hard for you to see it. Let me move my camera a little bit. So up here is the center of my bigger hoop, and it's falling between 2 of my lines. So I could draw myself a new center line and a center line here, and I could hoop this, and I can actually stitch 4 designs in one hoop. Some of you may have a hoop that you could do 2 more. Some of you might have this one where you could do 4, but it's actually very convenient. So once I get this on the machine, this says 3, I would call up 3, center it, stitch it. This is number 4, call that up, center it and stitch it. 1 and 2 the same, and then I could get them all done with just hooping once and getting 4 of them in there.
That's awesome. What size is your big hoop? Someone wants to know. Inquiring minds.
I think it's a 11.9 by 18. That's the size of the big hoop that I have. But there's a lot of big hoops out there. A lot of them you can get 2. Some you may even get 4. So once you get your whole back piece stitched, then it's time to layer it with your front. So you will put it flannel side. I will put the flannel side to the back of my battleizer, and I will pin it in a few places, and then I'll start stitching in the ditch to do the quilting. And the quilting will be done with, I like to do it with monopoly thread in my needle and monopoly in my bobbin as well. And I would just stitch in the ditch between all of your blocks, and then you're done with the quilting part. You can, here's a sample of a finished one. Hopefully you can see a little bit, maybe you can see it right here. There's like a little bit of a serpentine stitch. Can you see that?
Well, a little bit when you hold it up, I can.
Maybe you can see it on the back. You see the serpentine stitch? So that is done in the ditch between all of my blocks. So that's how you would quilt the 2 layers together. And remember, I have the flannel side is under this, and then you put the flannel side to the battleizer, and then you can stitch in the ditch.
Cool. Okay, Nina's getting some questions, and she's asking if we can clarify this for some people. And I know you'll know, but she's saying, can you clarify, where you're using the flannel, where you're using the battleizer, the different layers within the quilt?
Yes, so we stitch the quilt front on battleizer. For the quilt back, you're going to use fabric. This is fabric. I know it's hard to see it because it's white, but this is regular fabric. This is my flannel or my wool. I can use either one. So the fabric for the back gets laid on top of the flannel or the batting, and you're quilting on the right side of the fabric.
Okay, that's super helpful. And then this question, I don't know, Linda, you tell us. Karen O'Brien asked, could I use the quilting file to quilt a whole quilt, meaning top, batting, and backing? Such a cute design.
Absolutely, you could. And then instead of putting like embroidery bobbin thread in your bobbin, you could make the bobbin thread the same as your needle thread and just quilt the whole thing. In that case, I would bring the bobbin thread up to the top when you start it so you don't have any knots or anything on the back. But yeah, for sure you could do that.
That'd be pretty.
You just have to mark, you would have to do these markings on your quilt front.
Okay. You guys got any other questions while we've got her here? Yeah,
No other
I hope you
questions?
post that in our group, Karen, when you do it. Do it and post it.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. Oh, there we go.
Good.
Carla has one. Do you use a specific needle when you're using the monopoly?
I use either probably when I'm using the monopoly for this project, I'm sewing through the quilt top. I'm sewing through this quilt top and the back. So it's quite a bit of layers. So I would probably use a 9 or a 14 needle for that. A little bit thicker than normal.
Okay. Speaking of layers, let's pop this question up. How do you avoid the knots on the back of the quilt when doing all 3 fabrics at once?
In that case, you would bring the bobbin thread up to the top before you start sewing. So you know when I hoop my design and I hit start, I could have done a needle up down to bring my bobbin thread to the top and hold onto it when it begins sewing, and that way you won't get the knot on the back.
Okay, perfect. Here's another one for you. I don't know. This Linda might know. I don't know.
Well, I want to.
I think you should. I think
If
you guys
I
like
do it,
it.
I will do it. We'll see what the other girls do.
Yeah, if it's Linda's design, she'll do it. You heard it here. Okay, do you know this one or do you pay attention to this? What is the width and length of the serpentine stitch?
I could tell you if you hold on a minute. Let me turn my machine on. But frankly, whatever your serpentine stitch comes up on your machine, that's what I would go with. I don't change it at all. So if mine's a little different than yours, I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, there you go.
I'll show you what mine is in a second. All I got to do is find it. Okay, the stitch that I happen to use is 2.5 in the length and 5 in the width. And what I like about it, what I like about it is you've got seams under here, and by doing that serpentine stitch, it kind of nails the seams down, the bulk of the seams. I'm talking about these seams right here. The serpentine stitch will kind of nail that down for you, so it'll keep it nice and flat.
All right. And then what do you think? Local quilt shop have monopoly bobbins?
They probably will. If they don't, they could get them for you. But they're nice. The pre-wound bobbins are great because winding a bobbin in this stuff is kind of a pain in the butt because it's very stretchy, and they get a lot of thread on there and they last quite a long time.
Why don't we sell those?
Oh, we probably could. Yeah, we probably could.
We
We could get that on the website by tomorrow.
Probably should put that on the website. And then here's a good question too. Can you use fabric in place of flannel? It sounds to me like you're going to want that flannel or a batting with your fabric.
You want something a little fluffy. So that's why I chose flannel with my fabric, or like I said, fabric with a very lightweight batting, because you're going to have all those layers together and you want it to be, this has the Quilter's Dream Request Loft and the Battleizer, and it's very soft. So this will be even softer with my flannel. It'll be thinner.
Okay. Yes, we do have a replay. I saw that question too. I'm not sure about this question. I'm not sure what she means. Maybe you'll know, Linda. Can you see it?
What about the knots on the back of the 3 fabrics at the end of the design? So what I would recommend, you can't avoid that, is it's got to knot. What I would recommend you do is turn off your automatic thread cutter. Same thing we do when we have a Hoop Sisters design where we add the back of the fabric to the back of the block. We always turn off the automatic thread cutter. It'll still make a knot. You're going to want it to make a knot because you don't want it to come out. But then you can just clip your threads nice and close and you won't have that kind of a little mess back there.
And Cindy, maybe you just missed it, but Linda actually did put a really big hoop. It wouldn't even fit in the camera.
Right.
Really big hoop. And she did show this. So if you're just joining us, maybe jump on and rewind it, watch the replay, fast forward, rewind, all that good stuff till you get there. But we did talk about that, and yes, you can. Okay. Oh, this is nice. Very informative. Learned so much.
Good.
Carla, oh yeah. Monopoly bobbins. Yes, please.
All right, we'll get on that. We can get on that. I'll take care of that. We'll have it on our website tonight or maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. And then someone on Facebook said they're super used to Hoop Sisters designs, but this is new and they're looking forward to trying it. And we joked when we did the workshop to launch this, it was hashtag don't be a chicken. Linda kept saying, don't be chicken, just try it. So there you go. All right.
Well, I know a lot of people have done edge to edge. There's a lot of machine embroidery companies out there that have edge to edge. Some of them, the design will start on one side and end on the other, and you have to join the start and end points. My design is all in one. There's no start and end point. So there's a lot of leeway with placement, and you don't notice if it's going to be a tiny bit off. So I tried to take the stress away. I've done the ones where you have to match up your start and end points. Really not that bad to do and kind of fun. But this one doesn't have it. So it took away that little bit of stress. So it's a good place to start. Thank you, Miss Lori. She says it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellen is holding us to the bobbins on the
I know. And then I think you answered this already, but Janine's asking, do you need to put the lines on the fabric if you have a camera?
So if you have a camera, you need to know how your camera works. I have no idea how your camera works.
They're probably a little different.
Yeah, so I am not going to go there because I did this because this is how it works for me. And it's going to help you with a visual on how to place the design. So I'm going to put the ball back in your court and you tell me if you need to do the lines on the fabric because I don't know how the cameras work. I don't have a machine that has that. I do have a machine with an app and I still need the lines because I need somewhere to figure out how to put it. And to me, it kind of keeps you straight if you put the lines on there, and it keeps you lined up. If you don't, how are you going to really know if it's lined up properly?
Mm-hmm. So maybe test it, but we suggest low tech.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we're getting these types of questions a couple times, and I just want to make sure that we hit this one home. So if you bring my bobbin thread to the surface at the beginning and then knot and bury, I'm not sure what that means, but I think she's asking.
So Tia, that's only if you're going to have 3 layers of your quilt, your top layer, your batting, and your back layer. This is not that at all. This is completely different than that. I am only quilting my back and my batting together. So I don't have to worry about bringing my bobbin thread up to the top. I don't have to worry about knotting or knit or burying. I don't have to do any of that. I just cut it right off. So I think what you're talking about is when you're actually quilting the 3 layers of the quilt together, then you want to do all that, but that is not what we're doing here.
Okay. And Connie says she has the pre-wound monopoly and loves it.
Well, it's the only way to go. I think I've had this package for over a year and I still have quite a bit left and I do quite a few quilts.
And we use monopoly to join all of our stuff, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This might be in the instructions, but we'll ask you. Ellen asked, how much larger is the flannel than the top fabric and quilting back?
That is actually in your instructions. And I didn't go over it because there's 2 different quilts, 3 sizes each. So that's 6 different sets of instructions. So you need to pull up your specific size and quilt that you're doing, and it'll tell you exactly how much bigger it is. I think as a general rule of thumb, you wanted a good extra 5 inches around all 4 sides. That way your hoop has room to go get close to the edge.
Okay. And this might be our last question of the day from Miss Joan Good. For the pre-wound bobbins, wouldn't you need one that would match your machine?
Yes, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. These are class 15s, which would be like a Janome style bobbin. So yeah, that's a very good point. So we may want to think about that and see what we can get.
Okay.
And then, so if we do end up putting this on the website, we'll be sure to make clear what machine they are for.
Okay. Thank you, Joan. Thank you.
Class 15. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we did it. Session 3, all about E to E. And then remind us again what we're doing next week for our last sew along class.
Next week, we're going to finish it all up. I actually have, if you see my quilt edge here, there's no binding. No binding on it at all. I like that look. So if you want to know how to do this, it's called a facing. So that's what we'll be doing next week. This is what a facing will look like. Wait, let me get it. Camera is backwards. I get all turned around. Oh, and we're also going to talk about the label. So this is a nice little modern finish on it to get this facing, and it looks good on the front and the back. So that's what we will do.
All right. Okie dokie. Well, keep the questions coming if you have them, and we'll make sure to get them answered. But other than that, we will meet back here next Wednesday at the same time, same place to close out. I can't believe we're here already. Close out the last session of the Barn Quilt Sew Along, where we're going to talk all about the facing and label. So
yep,
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll
Thanks,
see you
everybody.
then.
Okay. Bye.